Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of an over-the-board game. This is postmortem number 10. Let's see, I was away from my computer here for a couple of weeks, so I wasn't feeling up to playing some Blitz games right away. I'm probably pretty rusty. So I thought to buy myself some time, I would take a look at some tournament games that I played recently, and this is one of them. This was played here before I left on my trip. And at the local chess club. It's the round 6 of the summer championship. There's an annual championship, club championship tournament in the summertime. Usually goes 7 rounds. I wasn't going to play in round 7. I took a bye for round 7 because I was traveling. So this is my last round game, effectively, even though it was round 6. And I'd had a pretty good tournament. I was doing a little bit better than expected, so if I won this game, I'd pick up some rating points. And if I lose this game, I'd probably break even, but not lose a lot of rating points. So there wasn't a whole lot on the line. I was mostly just playing this game for the fun of it. And, well, my opponent was lower rated, so I definitely wanted to beat him. I didn't want to give away any easy rating points. So anyway, my opponent kicked off with e4. And I played e6, the French defense. I play this occasionally. My main moves are the Sicilian and the Ruy Lopez, e5 and c5 and e5 rather. But I've been playing this a little more and more as I've been trying to learn it. So d4, d5, and now white gets to choose from a number of different lines: knight c3, knight d2, e5, and he chose knight d2, the Tarrasch defense. Now black gets to choose at this point, and black can continue in more or less French territory with knight f6, hitting the pawn and encouraging the pawn to go forward to e5. And that would give you the typical closed pawn structure of the French defense. But there's another way to play it, which is to hit out with c5 immediately. And this is probably the main line, even though it allows white to give you an isolated queen's pawn in the main line here, because eventually these two pawns are going to be traded off, and black is going to be left with this isolated queen's pawn. But that was one reason why I selected this game. It's also a tactically interesting game as well. But I also, in my postmortem number 8 of an over-the-board game, I showed an example game where I had the opposite side. I was playing against an isolated queen's pawn, and I showed some of the strategies you use to play against the isolated queen's pawn. I thought it would be nice to be able to show the other side and show some of the strategies you use when you're playing with the isolated queen's pawn. And I think that's something really every chess player should feel comfortable playing either side of an isolated queen's pawn position. The isolated queen's pawn gives a clear character to your strategy. So your battle lines, your plans are pretty straightforward, and you can play either side. If you've got the side playing against the isolated queen's pawn, you want to restrain it, you want to trade off pieces, and you want to attack it as a weakness in the endgame. And if you have the isolated queen's pawn, what you want to do is take advantage of your space edge. You'll have a slight edge in the amount of space you get in the center due to the isolated queen's pawn. Get your pieces posted on active squares. Avoid trades. Try to get all the pieces out and get them as active as possible. And try to get some attack going in the middle game, because in the long run the isolated queen's pawn is a weakness, but it can be a strength in the middle game. It gives you some squares and some attacking possibilities. Okay, so this game continued knight f3, and this is all the main line: knight c5, knight c6, right up to this point. Now the main line here is bishop b5. I'll go ahead and put it on the board just to show you. Bishop b5, and the black usually plays bishop d6, and it would go like this with an exchange, then castling, and then black plays knight to e7. It's important to close down the e file so that black can castle comfortably. And this is a solid position for black. Slight edge for white, like most openings, but no more than usual opening advantage. So a decent way to play. Somewhat similar to the game. So let's go back to the game and show what happened. In this position, after I played knight c6, my opponent played bishop e2. So this is in the book. It's not an unknown line, but it's not particularly common. It's not losing a pawn because if you grab the pawn, white always has the move knight to b3 to get it back. He's got suddenly 3 pieces attacking the pawn, and you only have one guy defending it, so he's going to get the pawn back. So at this point, the normal move is just knight f6, although you can take it. That's a move too. Then white castles. And then right here, actually, the book move is to go ahead and take the pawn and allow white to win it back. Instead, I played bishop d6, also in the opening book, but not the most common move. Then he takes, take back, and he plays knight b3, kicking the bishop. I drop back. And then he plays c3, restraining the isolated pawn from advancing. And now you can see things have shaped up pretty clearly. Well, I'll go ahead and castle. You know, my development is mostly completed, and I probably need to get this bishop out and get this rook over. Get this rook over. You get your rooks on open files. You can take advantage of these squares you have in the center. So black has just got a little more space, and he can get some activity going and maybe an attack going if white isn't careful. White played bishop g5. These moves actually are all still in the opening book. I play rook e8, getting on the open file. And finally here is the first move that's not in the book. So the opening book has 2 suggestions. One is to play bishop to h4, which is a bit of a surprise. Normally you sit here with the bishop on g5 until you're asked to move by the move h6. You know, just trying to cause trouble and maybe force a pawn weakness with h6. So it's unusual for the bishop to retreat voluntarily, but it does lend support to the f2 square, which you'll see in this game becomes a factor. The other book move here is queen to d3, just developing, getting the queen out, connecting the rooks. Good move. My opponent played knight bd4, which is also an okay move. So we're out of the opening book with this after this move. And of course, I've been out of the opening book for a while. As soon as my opponent played bishop e2, I was pretty much improvising from that point on. I think it's interesting that the moves we found were an actual line that was in the opening book up to this point. So, so at this point, I should probably just continue with my plan of developing bishop g4 and rook to c8. Those would be normal developing moves, and you'd have good squares for all your pieces and be ready to play on and take advantage of any weakening moves that white might make. But instead, I was sort of attracted to some tactical possibilities. I was noticing there's already a little bit of pressure on the knight, on the bishop here on e2. Here, let's erase these lines. And it's just defended by the knight and the queen. And if this knight could be lured away, that would do 2 things. It would leave this bishop a little bit weak, and it would also open up this diagonal for my dark squared bishop. So I played the move queen d6. It's a bit of a provocation to see if I could provoke him into playing knight b5, which he did. And it's not that knight b5 is a especially bad move, but white does have to be careful starting about here. I play the move queen to e7. So that was part of my plan. I came here to provoke this move, and now I go queen e7, putting pressure on the bishop, and he needs to defend it. And he chooses to defend it with rook e1, which the computer at first thinks is the best move. But if you give the computer long enough to think about it, it doesn't like it anymore. So probably some other move should be played here, maybe bishop d3. So after rook e1, this is where I get a chance to play something. So there's a tactic in this position. And if you want to take a second to think about it, what I'm going to say about it is that and this is a slow game, so I have 10 or 15 minutes to think about this. This is kind of a critical point. You know, you don't want to embark on some tactic and find yourself lost after a few moves because you miscalculated. So you really want to take your time and see if you've got everything figured out. And I did not figure everything out. So what I'd like you to do is pause the video, see if you can find the tactic, and then see how deeply you can calculate. Okay, I'm going to give the answer away now, at least the first part. So the move I played was bishop takes f2 check. And the tactic that I saw was king takes and the knight here check. And then after the king moves, I'm going to win the bishop back. And then I've got my piece back and I'm a pawn up, and I disrupted my opponent's king, weakened his king side. So I thought, well, surely this is good. But it turns out it is okay, but it was not calculated deeply enough. So I was a bit lucky that this all works out. So let's take a look at things that could happen here. Yeah, I've given you a clue that things are not quite as simple. The move, white really has a choice between king f1 and king g1, and the king f1 move was played in the game. So let's take a look at king g1 first. And then after that, I would just grab the bishop here, and that's really the only move in that position. So I've restored material equality, but having calculated this far, the question is this still a good position for black? So why don't you think about it? Take a second, pause the video here, and see if you can figure out what's the best play for white, and can white get an advantage from this point? Okay, there's a lot of things going on. White could even consider just grabbing this pawn, which is loose. But probably the strongest move for white is to take the knight, and then after I take, to fork my two rooks. And so I had not calculated this, and I'm just lucky that it turns out there is a saving move here for black. So you have to be on your toes all the time, I guess. Sometimes combinations really are just too deep to calculate, although I'm sure a master would be able to figure that out. But if you want to, pause the video and see if you can find the saving move for black. Okay, I'm going to give the answer away. It's there's only one move, and it's bishop to h3. So it clears the back rank, because there were some potential back rank problems in addition to just the rooks being forked. And at the same time, it threatens mate. And the bishop can't be taken, obviously, because of the pin. And white needs to do something about the mate. Now, there's two ways to deal with this. I think the most straightforward line is bishop f3 here, just protecting that pawn and also hitting over here and leaving this fork intact. But now I have time. I can trade off rooks and then develop the other rook. And I get to a safe position where I am a pawn up. And so this is good for black. Black is doing okay here. The game might continue. Queen to g3 is a computer suggested line, but this doesn't look so great after the queen trade. Bishop to f5. Yeah, just retreating my bishop. And the material in terms of pieces, there's a rook and a bishop and a knight for each side, and I have an extra pawn. And I should be doing okay here. Not necessarily winning, but with advantage, and in the endgame I'll play for a win. So that's one way it might go. Let's see. Going back to king g1. King g1, knight takes g5. Knight takes g5. Queen takes, knight c7. Bishop h3. Yeah, the other way to defend this pawn is very interesting. It's queen takes d5. Not only defending the pawn, but picking up a pawn and threatening my queen as well. So the move rook e5 is forced here. I've got to protect my queen and try and chase his queen away. His queen drops back to f3. It's got to stay on this diagonal to hold on to this pawn to avoid getting mated. And now rook to d8 can be played here. It's a bit surprising, but it turns out that queen takes bishop can be met by queen here to e7 with a double attack, attacking his bishop and attacking his knight. And so after king f1, defending that, then queen takes here. And once again, in this case, I didn't get to keep my extra pawn, but the engine rates this as slightly better for black. So this is also a way to play for some advantage. I guess the advantage is based on, well, I have an active rook here. His rook is still in the corner, and he has an exposed king. So those are the factors that lead to an advantage for black here. Anyway, that was that was a lot to calculate, and I guess it's understandable that I didn't see it all the way through, but I could have tried to see a little deeper. So I almost, so I was definitely lucky in some sense that these tactics all work out for me. My opponent didn't play King G1, he played King F1, and there's similar tactics here. If you want to pause the video another time and think about it, see if you can figure out the tactics in this position, because there's a lot of the same threats. I'm going to have to grab the bishop to get material back, and now he's still got the threat of taking the knight and playing knight c7. So how can this be dealt with? Okay, I'm going to give the answer away. So I take here, and this is what was played in the game, and if he takes back, he didn't play this, but if he takes back, I take with the queen, he goes knight c7. I had the idea, I had seen this possibility, and I had the idea of playing queen f4 check, picking up the knight. And so that was my idea of how I was going to get out of this position with an advantage. But it turns out that's not the best move here. So the problem with queen f4 check is this move bishop f3. And this is hard to see, I guess. The king is in check and you block it, but it also opens up this attack on the rook, which is it's loose, it's not defended, so it's actually a checkmate threat. That has to be dealt with first. So take here, rook takes, queen takes, and now bishop to h3 to clear the back rank so I don't get mated. There was actually a threat of queen coming down here and checkmating me. And if he takes the bishop, then I'll just grab his bishop. So this works out okay. The engine says I could try, well, it's white's turn. White could take the knight in the corner here. And then queen takes f3 check. And he can't take back. It's nice to know there's this pin here. And so he blocks with his queen. I can trade the bishop off. And the king has to move. He can't take it. The queen can't take it. The king can't take it. So king to g1 is the best move. And then we get this trade. And in this position, you know, I've got a fair amount of material for my exchange. So I'm doing okay here too. But this is a bit lucky that all of this works out. So so queen f4 is not the best move here. Now the way to keep the advantage, black does keep the advantage in this combination, but has to play the move bishop to h3 once again. So this threatens checkmate, and it clears the back rank. So same idea as before. Now there are different ways to defend. If bishop f3 is played, we get a similar kind of line. I can throw in, I guess it's simpler. It's simpler to take here. Queen takes. And then I can take here with the bishop on g2. Check, bishop takes. And now I can do this check, queen f4 check, picking up the knight here, and I'll keep material up, pawn up. And he can't block with the bishop here because I can just take it. So that's the way this line would have gone with best play. So in this position, fortunately, my ability to foresee those events was not tested. After I played, he played king f1, so that's how the game went. I played knight g5, and then instead of taking the knight and trying this knight c7, which maybe is a bit difficult for him to calculate as well, he just played queen takes d5, getting his material back, but leaving me in a slightly better position. I play knight takes f3. I need to hit his rook. So if the bishop moves away on this diagonal, then I can take the rook with my knight. So the bishop grabs the knight, and now my queen is under attack. And I had already planned this move, bishop to e6. I knew there are various places in those combinations where he had this bishop move with an attack on my queen. So I always had to have this move in reserve, bishop e6. And so I am doing okay here. I come out of this with a slight advantage. And my opponent played queen e4. Maybe queen d2 was a little better, but this is still well. It gives me a slightly stronger advantage. So queen d2 was slight advantage to black, and this is maybe a little bigger advantage. I went queen c5 here, and this comes with the threat. I'm threatening to bring my bishop to c4 with check, and then that also would win his queen as well as nearly checkmating his king, but he can block it. Anyway, he blocks it in advance to stop all of his checks with bishop e2. And now I play the move bishop d5, hitting his queen. Apparently this bishop d5 move is not the best. Keeps some edge, but the best move here is I can just grab the pawn. Bishop takes a2. So I was a little bit afraid of playing that, but he's got to move his queen, and then I can get my bishop to safety over here on b3 and be comfortably up yet another pawn. So I guess this is okay. I just didn't want to go in for that pawn grabbing. Sometimes it can backfire on you. And I thought I had some interesting attacking ideas here, so I played bishop to d5. And now this is where my opponent really makes his last mistake. He needs to play b4 here and just to counterattack my queen. And after that, the game would be about even. So b4, rook takes queen, pawn takes queen, and the material is even. A rook and two rooks and two pieces for each side. And his pawns appear a little bit messed up and my pieces appear active, but he's got open lines and easy development for his rooks, so there's really no edge. The engine rates this as dead even, 0-0-0. So this bishop d5 move was not the best idea. But he didn't react in the best way. He didn't play b4. He just moved his queen. And after this, I think he moved it here so he could hold on to his bishop. And after this, I'm just winning. So there's a couple ways to win this. If you want to stop and think about what you would play here, there's not like one winning move. There's several good moves in this position, but you might want to think about it. It's always nice to be able to figure out how to put your opponent away. Okay, I'll give some answers now. The chess engine is recommending just a simple rook lift, rook e6. I guess with the idea of coming over here to f6, and his king is short of squares, so he could be in trouble with the attack. There's also rook e4, coming up here and attacking the queen. And then going down the list, h5 was a move suggested by the computer. So fourth on the list is the move I played. But I think this is a kind of a natural move. You take the bishop, and the point is he can't take back with the queen because you have still this threat of bishop to c4 there, pinning the queen, and so there's no back rank threat to worry about with that pin, and you win the queen. So he takes with the rook, and when he takes with the rook, he's undefended the knights. The knight is just loose here. So basically I'm winning two pieces for the rook, and so this is just a winning position for white. And the game doesn't continue too much longer. He plays b3, and I play bishop back to e6. I want on guard against back rank mates. He's going to probably double his rooks and try and get something here. I do have to always be mindful, even when you're winning. It's important to stay alert for all these things. He went queen e4. I bring my rook out, rook to d8. Played c4, hitting my queen. Dropped my queen back to b6. And then he went rook a to e1. So he is doubling, and he can't easily chase this bishop away, though. This bishop is pretty solidly anchored on e6 and can't be chased with pawns. So I start maneuvering my knight around, trying to chase his pieces to less comfortable squares and maybe get some tactics against his king. He went queen f5 here. Probably, yeah, the engine says rook d2 is the way to play it. So queen f5. A bit of a tricky move, hitting my bishop. And of course, if I move the bishop, he's going to mate me on the back rank. But I don't have to move the bishop. I can just leave it there, and I continue maneuvering with my knight. I come in here with knight d3, hitting his rooks. If I chase his rooks off this file, then this threat goes away and his queen is lost. So he takes the bishop. I take back, and then he grabs this pawn, hitting my queen. But I have the move rook to f8, which not only hits his queen but also pins it to the king. And so he resigned at this point. So that's how the game ended. We could go on a few more moves just to show you. He could still play with queen takes. I have to take back, and then he grabs my queen, and I have to take back. And so I've got a piece, and he only has one pawn against the piece. So I should be able to win this endgame without too much trouble. But I do have to be careful that these pawns don't get too far advanced. But with I have a piece and he doesn't, so I can basically round these pawns up. I just need to get my king active and make sure these pawns don't get too far advanced. So let's back up. Yeah, so in this position, he resigned. So I thought that was an interesting game. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and leave any comments you have in the section below. There is a playlist of all over the board games, so you can check it out. There's only 10 games on it, so it's not a huge playlist. This is the 10th one. And enjoy. See you guys later. Bye.